Hello and welcome to this movie night special. Today we are doing a character tier list for all of the police and hostages from the series Money Heist or Casa del Papel. And just to go through the tiers quickly, we've got top tier, we've got solid, average, dislikable, terrible, and scum. Scum being the lowest, most dislikable ones. There's also going to be a tier list for all of the robbers or anyone that in any way gets involved with the robbers, hence why, for example, Raquel Murillo is not involved in this. She'll be in the other one. Um, and yeah, so basically, I should just quickly preface this by saying that this isn't really based on morality, because if it was, like, basically all of them would be in scum because they torture people and they're just horrible. Um, but instead, it's more just about how likable I think they are, how I think about their characters, and that kind of thing. So, we'll get into it. We'll start off with Anton Yanthas, who is the one that sort of becomes a bit of a double agent. He's a solid character for me. I think the fact that he gets persuaded into supporting the professor not just because of money, but also when the professor makes like a valid argument about just how stupid everything the police are doing is, and how there's basically like no moral difference. If anything, it's more moral to help the robbers, if that's the opinion. I mean, I'm not saying that what the robbers do is right, because it generally isn't great. They do obviously kill people and that sort of thing, but I think that the fact it's a moral decision rather than just being based on money sort of validates his character and makes him a bit more interesting. Next up, we've got Ariadna, who I think again is a very solid character. I think that she's very compelling in terms of the way she is. The fact that she's obviously sadly taken sort of advantage of sexually and raped basically by Berlin, because she's basically only having sex with him because he has a gun. And I think that I think just to really the fact that she sort of stands up for her survival when she sees there's just no other hope, and the fact that even though she's so vulnerable and taken advantage of, yet she still in her mind has the way of how she'll get through this. Like, she's going to tell him how much she hates him when he's dying, and she's going to take his money. I think that she's just sort of quite a complex and interesting character, and someone who I think quietly is very interesting. Like, there's characters who have probably far more screen time and maybe get more attention than her, but I do think that she's just quietly a very interesting character. Next up, we go for Suarez, who's just bang average. Um, he's probably the police that does the least, maybe alongside Angel, who does the sort of least bad things in many ways. Like, he's just sort of an average, I don't know, guy that wants to do assaults or whatever it is. Assaults in terms of like missions, not punching people at pubs. Um, and I think that he's just sort of quite interesting. I really enjoy the bit where he's so angry about being forced to sing Bella Ciao for no other reason than the fact it makes no sense why he's angry about it. Because, like, I mean, obviously be angry at being sort of held at gunpoint, but the way that, like, it's a song about Italian partisans against the fascists, and like it somehow annoys the fact like he's just a Spanish police officer. Like, it doesn't really make any sense why he's angered by it, but he clearly is, and I just find that quite interesting. Next up, we've got Colonel Tamayo. He's just dislikable. He's probably, I mean, he agrees to really terrible things, so he is definitely a bad person, but he's less enthusiastic about it, I would say, than um, a number of the other ones. And so that probably makes him dislikable. I mean, that does also mean that he doesn't stand up for anything because it's not really his choice. Even though he has the power to deny things or at least stand up against them, he just allows them. So he's pretty bad in that sense. He's like the classic bystander in many ways, um, even though he obviously is in a position of power. But yeah, he's not a great person. So he's dislikable, but not quite in the lower ones. Next up, we have the teacher that is Mercedes. For me, she's just a bit dislikable. It kind of annoys me how she's like plays the sort of stereotypical teacher with all this. Oh, I have a duty of care to these kids. It's like, no, you're in the middle of a heist. Everyone else has a gun. You have no power. You have no authority. Stop pretending that you do. A bit like someone else that we'll come on to in a bit. But yeah, she's not. She doesn't really do anything wrong. But like, she's just really irritating as a character for me, and I don't really like her. We're going to skip past Alicia Sierra because I think that she should be left till the end. So next we're going to look at Alberto, I believe it is, who is the ex-husband of Raquel Murillo. He's terrible. It's only because of some of the other people that are on here that's why he avoids being scum. And I think my main problem with him is the way that he challenges El Profesor to a fight, gets battered, and then pulls a gun out. I mean, it's just pathetic. Like, why would anyone do that? I mean, I know why you do it, but it's just like, if you're going to challenge someone to a fight and then lose, don't pull out a gun and arrest them. It's just embarrassing. The fact that he arguably abused his ex-wife is pretty bad as well. In general, he's just a really bad person and not a character that I like in any way. Next up, we have Prieto. I think he's probably terrible as well. Could well be scum, but I think that he's sort of like a very clinical character, someone who basically just does things because he wants the results, and I think that he's a very bad character. I don't think he has any redeeming qualities at all, and he's not great. Then next up we have Alison Parker, who would obviously go into solid or average if I was basing this off anything other than the plot hole that she has, which puts her straight into scum. Now the reason for this is, if anyone's seen any other movie nights that I've done, it generally annoys me when sort of characters that are specifically for a language or a nationality just don't fulfill that criteria. And this is the case with Alison, because she's basically there as the British one, essentially, as the daughter of the British ambassador, and a major part of the plot in series 1 and 2 is how they have to deal with her because they don't want the British to take over, because that would be embarrassing for the Spanish police. But when she's talking about one thing that happened in Norwich, she pronounces Norwich like Norwich, which demonstrates to me that she's clearly never been to Norwich, and she's also not English. So that's just something that really annoyed me, and is why I very unfairly put her into the scum category, because obviously she doesn't actually do anything wrong, and is morally better than almost everyone in this list. Next up, we go to someone who falls into scum, and that is Pablo Ruiz. He actually, on a side note, provides the one sort of rare bit of humour I guess this series provides. I absolutely love that bit. I think it's in the first series, one of the first few episodes, where he talks, like, really fiercely talks about how he's the captain of the athletics team, and Rio is just like, ooh. I just really love that bit. But no, he's a horrible person. The fact that he completely, like, took advantage of Alison, he's a complete creep. Also, the fact that he asked her to be, like, his girlfriend after speaking to her, like, literally saying one word to her, like, that was weird. He's just a creep. Guy that dresses himself up as a nice person, but it's just horrible. Next up, Arturo Roman. By some distance, my least favourite character in the entire series. He's dodgy. He almost certainly raped that person. He just wants the limelight. He's just awful. Like, he really is awful. Terrible, terrible character. Everything about him is just so dislikable. There's literally, like, no redeeming features with him. He's just always playing the hero, even though, like I said, he's a rapist. He's just horrible, and you just can't stand him. Next up, we'll save another major character to the end in the Angel, and we'll move instead to Candia. Candia falls into scum because he just has no morals. He shoots Nairobi in the head for absolutely no reason. Well, I mean, I guess he sort of has a reason because they're the robbers, but, like, she's unarmed and he has control of her, and he just shoots her in the head, even though for me she's probably one of the nicer robbers. So that was very harsh and unnecessary. He's just really, like, cold killer, just a bad person. So yeah, he's one of the people that definitely falls into scum for all the right reasons. Less so Alison Parker. So now we move on to, I guess, for me, who are maybe two of the most relevant characters. Angel more so obviously in the earlier series, and Alicia towards the end. I'm going to go with Angel first. Angel, I'd either put him in solid or top tier. I think he just goes solid. I think he's an emotional character. He's very attached to Raquel, and I think that he's someone who, he has a lot of things that aren't great. He's firstly not messed up like the rest of them. Like, he's not into torture, and that kind of thing. But he's very interesting in the way that he's so desperate to be with Raquel, even though obviously he has a wife, and he says that he'd dump her. So he has a lot of reasons that he's bad. It's kind of interesting because everything about his character just indicates that he'd be single, like the way that he's just friend zoned by someone else, and he's so keen to have her, but like he has a wife anyway. It's just really odd. He's interesting, and like I say, he has some more redeeming characters. I also enjoyed the fact that he's a fan of Atletico de Madrid. Um, but yeah, that's why he falls into solid tier. Now, finally, and this is definitely the most controversial choice that I have, I'm putting Alicia Sierra in top tier. Um, you know, a lot of people will question why I've put someone who's a torturer, does just abuses human rights categorically, put her in top tier, and then just put a normal schoolgirl like Alison Parker in scum tier. Those people would probably be right. It's probably not the most logical decision to do this, but I just find her character so compelling. Like, I just think that the way that, especially, I love that press conference when she just comes out and like she's supposed to say, "Oh yeah, it was all me," like, just to sort of get the police off the hook, and then the police will make sure that she doesn't go to prison. But instead, she just turns up and is like, "Oh yeah, we did literally everything he said. We also did loads of things that he forgot to say." Like, she just throws that in. She's just a really interesting character. Um, there's the sadness about her in the way that her her husband had died recently. Um, she's just a really interesting character in the way that she is, because she just does so many things that are wrong, but then it's also kind of out of vulnerability as well. And I think that I even get the feeling throughout that even though Raquel Murillo is there, like, she's defected from the police, she's joined the criminals, she's like been arrested, and she's just stuck in this tent. No one even knows where she is. She's not even been like properly arrested. She's surrounded by everyone, so presumably in every sense of the word she's a powerless character. But I honestly feel in her negotiations with Alicia that Raquel almost seems more powerful, which is such a crazy thing to say because of just how unbalanced the power balance there is, and it should all be about Alicia. But Alicia, just for such a cold and cruel person, just does have that vulnerability that just makes her that bit more interesting. Um, and yeah, I do just think she's probably one of the most interesting characters I've really come across in a lot of things that I've watched. I do, yeah, just sort of think that she's a very intriguing person. But anyway, do let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching this movie night video, and I'll see you next time.